I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network, and today's topic is consciously curating our stories. So most of us, maybe all of us, have an ongoing narrative of life, circumstance, interpreting events, evaluating ourselves, evaluating others, and oftentimes this whole conversation exists just outside of conscious awareness. And the thing about it that is fascinating is that we then make determinations about, we live into our lives as if those stories are real, and half the time we don't even know what's going on. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Good morning, Rosalind. Welcome. It's great to have you joining us this morning, and welcome to everybody else who's here with us. We had a little bit of technical difficulty on the front end, so that's why we got started a little late this morning. But let's, before we get into our conversation, take a few minutes to get present. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells and your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together. Vigorously rub your hands together to feel the friction, the temperature, the pressure, the motion, the tickling and tingling when you stop, and allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables us to experience life. So today we're talking about consciously curating our stories. So what does it mean to curate? If we were to curate a museum collection, we would be caring for it. We would be selective about the things that we were displaying and how we would be displaying them, and elevating certain things and maybe minimizing others. And when we talk about curating our stories, it's not entirely dissimilar, where we get to bring our stories to our conscious awareness so that we can be more discerning about the stories that we tell, not necessarily to other people, but to ourselves. And I don't know if you've ever experienced this. I'm curious to know if you have, where you just become aware of a dialogue going on in your head that you hadn't previously been aware of, and you weren't actively engaged in it. You weren't creating it consciously in any way. Maybe that makes me very strange. I don't know, but that's something that has happened to me on more than one occasion, where all of a sudden I become aware that there's this chatter going on in my head that I wasn't aware of, and I don't even know where it's going. And it doesn't always necessarily have to do with what's happening externally. It's almost like picking up on a radio signal somewhere and getting this broadcast. It's bizarre. But anyway, what happens, I think, for most of us is that we do have this internal dialogue, and we do often not even know that that's happening. Like we're kind of blinded to it because there's such a constant stream of chatter in our minds. And these stories also that we tell ourselves, I mean, that's only other than the conscious, it's out of our conscious awareness, but there are often times where we're telling stories in a very deliberate way, where we are trying to make sense of an event, for instance, or an interaction. We're reviewing something in our minds, and or we're upset, and we, as an example, driving when angry, where we'll make stuff up about other people who are driving in a way that might be undesirable to us, for example. But most importantly, the stories that I want to address are the stories that we have about ourselves and the world and other people that we interact with. And the thing that is so insidious about these stories is that they exist for us as true. So, for example, I'm sure there are a lot of examples like this, but in speaking with a client, they were talking about a circumstance that they anticipated was going to happen. And they had a certain level of hopelessness around that circumstance, and were saying it's never going to change. This situation is never going to get rectified, and this is how it's going to play out, and that's just how it is. And so the first thing to recognize is we don't know what's going to happen in the future. We may have a good sense of what the likelihood is that something will happen, but we truly do not know what is going to happen. And we create these projections of the future, typically based on the past. So we take our past, we make an interpretation of a current situation, and then we put that out in front of ourselves to step into and act as though that's the reality and that's the truth, where in fact we could just, and oftentimes those scenarios are negative. We could just as readily create a positive scenario to be living into. Again, it's a creation. So the stories are creations. Ultimately, there's no moment but the present moment, right? Yes, we can anticipate certain things that'll happen in the future, and we can make preparations based on those anticipations so that we're caring for ourselves. But then we get to live into those potentials in a way that allows the future to be fluid, because it is, right? That our preparations are creating maybe some safety for ourselves, literally or figuratively. But looking at the stories is a really important thing. So if we're caught in worry, for example, what is worry? It's negative projection carried forward into the future. So can we prepare for a potential future and not be at the mercy of worry? Yes, we certainly can. The stories that we have about our preparation or about what our future might look like or about ourselves or about others shape the way that we feel. They shape our emotional response to things, which also shapes our physiology, because all emotions are accompanied by certain chemistry. And so this notion of curating our stories is a critical thing to do for our health and well-being. It's not just an arbitrary exercise or a nice to have kind of thing. It actually can literally affect our health and well-being. And so when we create a story about something that generates anger for us, that anger could motivate us to do something positive. It may spur us to action. But if we hold that anger, if we maintain that anger, what's going to happen is that it is going to physically affect us, because there are certain emotions attended by certain chemicals that work their way, chemistry that work their way on our bodies, and over time create dis-ease, right? So this is not a conversation about it. It's not a woo-woo conversation, shall we say, in that our stories shape the reality that we live into. And oftentimes those stories are created in a very automatic way, beyond our awareness, beyond our engagement, beyond our ability to choose and to exercise our conscious sovereignty, our conscious ability to shape the quality of our lives. So the quality of our lives is in so many ways dictated by the quality of the stories that we tell ourselves. And so if I tell myself that everyone's out to get me and that it's hopeless to even try to go for things that matter to me, then the experience of my life is going to be one of victimhood and suffering, most likely, right? And just as easily, we could tell ourselves a story of opportunity and potential. Because when we tell ourselves stories, we then seek validation for those stories, not always in a conscious way, but we tend to look for justification, for proof. So we can prove that the world's going to hell in a handbasket. We can prove that there's all kinds of positive change happening in any moment. So the question is, what stories do you want to choose? Like, notice a story that you tell yourself. You might tell yourself that you're too fat, you're too thin, you're too whatever, you're too anything. When you're too something, then there's a sense of judgment that you're living under, that you're passing upon yourself, that is limiting you from being whole and being okay. Simple things, little things. Or even, I have too much to do. And that's a story that a lot of us tell ourselves. I have too much to do. It's overwhelming. Rather than I'm getting a lot done. Or I am taking on all kinds of great challenges here. Or there are any number of ways that you could rewrite that story. Or I have all the time I need to do what I need to do. It feels different. If you can evaluate the detriment or benefit of a story that we have based on the way we feel when we speak it. You know, when I say I have too much to do, all of a sudden I start feeling overwhelmed and kind of hopeless, versus I have all the time in the world. I have all the time I need to get the stuff done that I need to do. And I can create flow for myself. It's a very different experience. So I invite you to look at a story. Now, the thing is that sometimes it's hard to recognize these stories because they just exist as is. They exist as if that's the reality. That's how life is. But I invite you to identify a story that may not be serving you. I talked the other day about recognizing the story that I had around having asthma or being asthmatic. And it's really interesting. I've noticed that since that recognition, I've actually had a greater ease in breathing. And when I had started having some challenges, I was able to say, it's a belief. It's a belief. Doesn't mean that that's how things are, or that they have to be that way in this moment, or that they have to be that way going forward. So challenging a story that you have can be a super powerful experience. It can open up gateways to a whole new experience of yourself. So I invite you to look at a story you might have for yourself. Something that is not a happy story that you have for yourself. Like, I really want this and it's never going to happen. Or even the story of it's taking too long, or I should have been able to do this by now. Hey, Sue, good morning. Good morning. It's great to have you here with us this morning. Sue says, good reminder. Yeah, I mean, just the simple things that we tell ourselves, especially the should conversations. You know, I should have been further along by now. Well, that kind of story, what's it doing for us? It's demoralizing, right? I shoulda, woulda, coulda. Looking at the past, I should have done this or that or the other thing. Well, so the thing is that if we recognize that, if we use that observation to serve ourselves going forward, to learn something that serves us, great. But if we keep in that cycle, it's the same thing with anger. Anger can prompt us into action. That can be a good thing, as long as we don't allow the anger to continue to consume us. The shoulda, woulda, coulda, maybe there was some regret about something. Great. If you can use that regret to transform your actions going forward, great. If not, let it go. Don't use the shoulda, woulda, coulda to continually beat yourself up. To use it as an opportunity for learning, and then it's a positive thing. And this is part of the curating our stories, is to recognize, some things only get a short show in the gallery, right? Some things we get to just say, okay, it was a limited I'm engagement, right? Okay, great. Limited engagement, shoulda, woulda, coulda. Okay, so next time I know I'll do it this way. Good. But continuing with that rumination only serves to be self-destructive. So being alert to our stories and then bringing a level of awareness and intentionality to them can be life altering. So that's today's invitation, that you look for a story that has been less than productive for you and find a way to retell it in a way that supports you in your intentions in your life. And that's it for this morning. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. And I go live here each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. And I invite you to please like, follow, and share Enlightened World Network and me. The links are in the description. And as always, it is my distinct privilege and pleasure to have the opportunity to share these musings on being human in these mornings together. So with much gratitude and appreciation, until next time, so much love to you.